Hi everybody, it is my first filmed video in front of my new space background and I love it so much. Even though there are some that would probably look better, I just really love this one, so we're stuck with it. So I had asked on Twitter if anyone had any questions that they wanted me to answer in a video about Pitch Wars, and so I wanted to title this all of your Pitch Wars questions answered. I have a couple questions that I'm going to be able to answer very quickly, and then the big one that I'm going to be talking about at the end of the video is what happens after you submit to Pitch Wars. I am reading the questions off of my phone, my Twitter. So Mike asks, why does it have to be a war? Why not pitch peace? Mike, if you don't know, was a Pitch Wars community member last year, and he was a mentor for several years, and he is sometimes called Pitch Wars Dad Mike. So this is just kind of like a Pitch Wars joke, and he thought he was joking, but I'm going to answer it. And Brenda actually answered this in the 88 Cups of Tea podcast that we did, so I'll leave a link down below if you want to hear the full story. But it is actually named after Cupcake Wars, which was a TV show, you know, that back in like 2011, where chefs made cupcakes, and it was a competition, which sounds like the best competition to judge, in my opinion. But yeah, so it's completely named after Cupcake Wars, and it's because the people who make the cupcakes had, you know, like a friend, you know, an assistant who would help them create the cupcakes. And so Brenda decided that she wanted writers to have someone like that who could help them work on their manuscript, and so that's where the name comes from. Tamara asks, is it okay to start a manuscript off with a different person's POV other than the main character? This is obviously a taste question. I think some people might answer this differently, but I do think it's very dangerous, because when you read the query and you get excited about a character or a concept, and then you start reading and it doesn't seem like the same story as the query, that can be really dangerous, because that can be, you know, that can make you feel like this is not what I signed up for, and they may keep reading or they may not if that's the case. And so I think different people will feel differently, but that's my opinion. So we have a question about query letters, specifically related to Pitch Wars. Would it be smart to include a link to my Boost My Bio post at the end of my query, should the mentors want more info? I would not. We actually say on the website specifically not to put any links in your query letter for more information. If someone is interested in you, we do ask for your Twitter handle, and so they're gonna find your Twitter handle and find it if they want to. But Boost My Bio is more about connecting with other hopefuls than it is reaching out to the mentors. A lot of the mentors won't even read them unless they're already very interested, in which case they're reading several other things, such as your Twitter stream. So I wouldn't include that in there, you know. Sherry asks, my question would be about the 35-word pitch. I'll have this pitch ready, but how important is the 35-word limit? Can a pitch be close to this limit, or must it be absolutely no more than 35 words? So this pitch is something that's listed on the website as an optional thing to have ready, so it's definitely not required. But the reason why we ask for it is when a mentor starts working with you, they're not only working on your manuscript, they're going to work on your pitch that's going to appear on the Pitch Wars blog during the agent showcase, and that starts off with a short pitch. And it does not have to be a hard 35 words. But I will say that whenever I worked with someone on this, what I would ask them to do is to write several short pitches. And the goal here, I always say, try to make it sound like as different books as you can. So sometimes when I'm reading two pitches about the same book, it may barely sound like the same book. And that's what I really like, because then I can take those pieces that really work and put them together into like a Frankenstein pitch. And that usually turns out to be stronger than anyone else, because when you're trying to view your manuscript through one specific lens, you're gonna stick and focus on very specific things. But if you try and to focus on something else, if you try to look at it through a very different lens to make it seem like a different book, you're gonna focus on some other elements that may also be compelling and may also be good to include in your pitch. And so this is just like a, you know, just in case you get chosen, have this ready. But if you don't have it ready before you start, it's not a huge deal. And the word limit is definitely not a hard word limit. Okay, so the final question, which is probably going to take a little more time for me to answer, is from Amber. Amber says, maybe you can explain the process about what happens after we submit. And that is a big topic. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. You have about 3 days in which to submit your manuscript. And so what's going to be happening during that time is mentors are going to start reading them, but maybe not in a really focused manner, because we do actually encourage them to stay off of the submission site during those 3 days, if at all possible, because it increases our server load. So every time a mentor would refresh their submissions, it refreshes all of their submissions, which is a huge load on our server. And if anyone was around like 3 or 4 years ago, you may have seen, you know, the great pitchwars server crashes, and those were pretty terrifying, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And so we do request that they not view their submissions as much as they can during the submission window, because we want to leave all of that server load available to people submitting their submissions. So you may see some requests coming in the submission window, but not very many. Now, mentors all read very differently. I think if you asked, you know, 100 mentors, you would get 100 different answers on how they're planning to read their submissions. And so some will go in order and some will bounce around. By the way, on the submission site, it's really hard for the mentors to tell like what order submissions were submitted in. And so they're probably not even really paying attention to when they're submitting, because it's really hard for them to tell anyway. And we have like a weird numbering system that makes the submission order, that doesn't matter basically. But they may read, you know, just in number order, or they may bounce around, or they may, you know, look at specific genres first or something like that. And they all read very, very differently. So some may like really focus on the query, some may like skip the query first and read the first pages first. And so that it totally depends on the mentor, and it also depends on their workload. So some mentors may be able to read all of their initial submissions in like the first 2 days. I was never able to do that. I work a full-time job, and then I also have like some side gigs, so I don't really have the time to sit there for 2 days and just read through submissions. So it would usually take me probably like a week or two to get through all of my submissions. So then what happens if a mentor finds a submission that they're really interested in, they're probably going to request more materials. So they're going to request either fulls or partials. A lot of mentors request fulls, but some still request partials. And they might also ask you questions at this time. So just be prepared to answer questions about your submission history, if there's anything that you definitely don't want to change, or if there's something that you would really like to work on. That's when you should answer these questions, and not, by the way, in the initial query. Now, if you do receive a request from a mentor, we ask that you don't post about it publicly. And the reason why is this can cause a lot of like strife and hard feelings, and it may seem like you're bragging. Now me, I'm a Slytherin and I don't care, and it doesn't bother me, but that's why Slytherins need Hufflepuff advisors, and they all inform me that this can create a lot of bad feelings in the community, so we ask that you don't do it. However, if you have a small group of writing friends, which I do recommend like forever for your entire career, you can go ahead and post in there and celebrate there. And that is the best place to do it, because people do get a little bent out of shape when it seems like people are bragging about their requests on the hashtag especially. Now, when the mentors start reading some of the materials they've requested, a lot of them approach us in very different ways. They might bounce around in between separate manuscripts, or they might read all the way through one until they have kind of like decided that this is a strong yes, maybe, not necessarily yes, or that it's a definitely not, or you know, they just do it all different kinds of ways. Many of them will make like second and third rounds of requests, because what they do is they'll request 1 or 2 and then they realize that it's not exactly what they thought it would be, or they don't know how to help it, and so they'll go back and make some requests again. And sometimes these requests end up being like in the final week of consideration too. I know I've done that before, where the manuscripts that I thought were going to be, you know, really strong contenders ended up being ones that I didn't know how to help. And so I went back and read through everything again and saw if I could, you know, find something else that I would really like to work with someone on. Again, how many requests each mentor makes is totally up to them and totally up to their personality. And so I saw someone the other day said they only made 2 full requests last year. And to me, I don't know how you would do that, but they did make partial requests beforehand. So I guess that's how. But I like to request a lot of full. Some people like to request a lot. Some people like to request a little. And so it's totally dependent on their personality. Now, we always get this question: has there ever been someone who's been selected who never received a request? So someone who was selected based on their initial submission materials. And I can tell you that that has definitely happened because I was one of the people to do it. This was early on in the days of Pitch Wars, but I was not finding something that I really connected with. And when the time came for the deadline, I just saw potential in this original submission, and I thought it was good. And I think I had the synopsis somehow. I don't know how, because we didn't request it back then, but I did have the synopsis, so I made sure that the story didn't fall apart, halfway through. And yeah, so that person was probably very surprised because I had never requested any additional materials, and I chose them as my mentee. So it does happen. It is exceedingly rare, and it is, I think, more rare now that we get, we probably get like 4 or 5 times the submissions that we got back then. So it does happen. It's rare. Don't count on it. But anything can happen in Pitch Wars. Okay, so when we're nearing the end of the consideration period, the reading period for mentors, what happens then? A lot of times the mentors are narrowing down, the people that they're gonna select. I, a lot of times, would end up narrowing it down to like 4 or 5 that were my final contenders, and I just really loved, and I wish that I could pick all of them, but I couldn't. I could only choose one. And so this is where some of the coordination happens. So if you see that another mentor really wants one of your top 5, you either have to make the decision of whether or not you're going to let them have it, in which case it makes your decision a little bit easier because you have one less to consider, or if that's your one true love and you want to fight for it. And that's where the war comes in Pitch Wars. And so what happens then is the mentors will send basically a letter to the mentee, potential mentee, asking them, or telling them everything that they want to do with their manuscript. And then the mentee gets to pick which mentor they would like to work with. And then the mentor that loses that war chooses another person. And then it is time to announce. So on November 3rd, we post on our website the list of all the mentees that have been chosen and which mentors have chosen them. And so everyone finds out the same time. So if you don't get in, you find out by basically not seeing your name on the list. And if you do get in, you find out by seeing your name on the list, or oftentimes a friend seeing your name on the list and tweeting at you or texting you. I know that happens a lot too. And then the mentors and the mentees start working together. And sometimes, and this happens maybe once or twice every year, the mentee for some reason is unable to continue the relationship, and then that mentor will be asked to choose a second mentee. But that doesn't necessarily mean your second choice. Sometimes there are a whole bunch of factors involved, so don't think you're second choice if you're that second one that gets chosen. So I do want to just stress, if you are one of those people that you weren't on the initial announcement, and then it turns around and someone can't fulfill their obligations and you're asked to mentor, or you're asked to be a mentee, that does not really mean that you're second choice in the classic sense. It just means that that person probably saw something in the initial manuscript that they could help with a little bit more than yours. That's usually where the decision comes down to. So then the question becomes, what should you do after you submit while you're waiting for the announcement? Now, the first thing is to make sure you're checking your email occasionally, often, whatever works for you. Once a day is fine. And if you want to turn on email notifications, now may be a good time to do that, because if a mentor sends a request, they're going to be really anxious to receive it, and they're always happy when people respond quickly. You also want to occasionally check your spam folder because these are newer email accounts that these requests are coming from. Sometimes they may end up in your spam folder. And so make sure you're checking that occasionally and there's not a request from a mentor in there. Now, I think the 2 most important things to do while you're waiting for a decision is to, 1, write something new, and to 2, participate in the community. Even if you are feeling like you may have some additional adjustments to make on the manuscript you submitted, I always caution to just wait during that reading period for a couple reasons. Because usually if you're trying to make changes at that time, it's because you've just finished making changes, trying to get ready for pitch wars, and a little bit of distance is always a great idea for you to figure out what exactly you need to change in your manuscript. So taking like a month or 6 weeks or whatever it is away from that manuscript will really help you come back to it with fresh eyes. And the other reason is because then you'll have something new that you're working on. And that's always just a good idea in general when you go on submission to agents to write something new. When you're agented and your agent is taking your manuscript to publishers, it's a great distraction to write a new book. Trust me, it really helps to have something else to focus on rather than waiting for those requests to come in. And then we really would love y'all to participate in the community. And this happens a lot on Twitter and the hashtag, but there are also groups that are not official Pitch Wars groups, by the way. We don't sponsor any of those or endorse any of those, but there are a lot of groups that are created for people waiting for that kind of thing. So go and check those out. You may find out about them on the hashtag. You know, just interact with other people on the hashtag. We have the forums. The forums are really great for critiques, but you can go in there and, you know, start whatever kind of conversation you want if you have questions or anything like that, or you just need some like commiseration with fellow people who submitted, then that's great too. And so while you're waiting for that 6 months, or oh god, no, while you're waiting for that 6 week reading period to end, definitely, you know, stay active and keep doing things and keep your spirits up. Because even if you don't even receive a request from anyone, much less become a mentee, you can still gain a lot from this community in terms of, you know, community engagement and people posting advice posts and all kinds of stuff. And the mentors are going to continue posting, you know, advice throughout their reading period because they can't read submissions all the time, so they need a little something to distract them. And so just, you know, really participate in the community, and we love seeing y'all tweeting about it. We love seeing y'all like matching up, you know, with critique partners and friends and that kind of thing. And that just is one of my favorite parts about Pitch Wars. So definitely keep doing that. Okay, those are all the questions that I received on Twitter for this video. So I hope that helped some of y'all. I hope you got a little bit out of it. And if you did, and if you like to see more videos from me, please make sure to like and subscribe. I do have a new project that I'm launching in October, and I know I've been teasing it several times, but we are getting closer and closer to being able to announce it publicly. So if you want to see more information about that, make sure you subscribe and get the little notification bell so that you can find out about that as soon as that information becomes available. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.